Be ready for some very interesting reactions from the people around you. We're gonna be like 5 a.m. And then, when you've done it and you look back and it's like, I've done this for a month and I've seen benefits. Yeah, it makes you feel good about yourself. Feels quite empowering, I have to say.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another Friday coffee chat here with us. We are sitting here having some white tea and today's going to be a very special episode because it's going to be a bit different. I'm going to interview Eleni today on something that we did the other month. You've probably seen this on socials as well. We tried wellbeing trends and we wanted to chat about it because
share our experiences.
A lot has been happening.
Yeah.
So today I'll be interviewing Eleni about the 5 a.m. club.
Yes. And next week I'll be interviewing Tina. So, stay around for that as well.
If you ever wanted to try wellbeing trends, but you are a bit like, is it worth it? Then these episodes can be really, really helpful because we're going to really talk about all the struggles, but also everything that we've learned so far.
And also if it worked in the first place. Like for me, every time I see this, I'm like, yeah, it sounds great, but does it actually work? Like, is it worth the effort? Or is it just... Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
We will find out.
There's a lot of information out there with well-being trends in general. And you never know what actually makes sense and what doesn't. And I think another question is, does it make sense for everybody? So we're really going to dive into that. And I think without further ado, here's my first question for you. So, what motivated you to join the 5 a.m. club?
So... First and foremost, I was thinking about trying this out for the longest time. And the reason is that I have just noticed, and I've mentioned this so often, I think on this on these chats as well, is that my productivity peaks in the morning. I am so productive between maybe like 7:30 until like noon. And then it's just a drag. It really is a drag after that, right? And at the same time, so, during the last few years, I remember there were times I used to wake up at like 9 a.m. and that would be like, okay, I don't know what, during my study days. And so over the years, it got earlier and earlier. And for the past year or so, I would like wake up at 7 a.m. regularly. But what I also noticed is that once I started, doing workouts a lot more, I noticed that I also prefer to do that also in the morning. And then I had the dilemma where it's like, well, the morning only has a few hours for me. What do I prioritize, right? Do I go and do my workout, or do I take advantage of this productivity peak that I have literally half an hour after I wake up?
So it was like a dilemma, basically, what to do first.
Yes. And then I was thinking, is the solution to wake up earlier? And then, of course, we all have heard about, the 5 a.m. club and the productivity benefits that come with it and how you get more things done almost in less time. And so this is why I tried it out. And I was like, let's try to max my morning. And I was like, why not document that? Let's just do it. Let's just test it and see what happens. Give it a month. If it works, great. And if it doesn't, that's an experience in itself. And then I can be like, tried it, it's not for me. Go back to like my 7 a.m. routine.
That's so interesting because it really aligns with like what we've been talking on the pod a lot with this whole idea of chronotypes and how important chronotypes are when they are also applied on the well-being trends that we're trying out. So in your case, you're a morning person. And the mornings are the time where you have control over in that sense.
Exactly.
Which gets me to my second question, because I think this is, like, if I were to try it, the first thing that I would think about would be, okay, but I have been having this routine for so long. How did you transition into waking up at 5 a.m. from your previous routine?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen the reel, right? So we haven't talked about this to each other, by the way.
Yeah,
So
we
Tina is
actually-
actually hearing these things, like me talking about it for the first time, except for the reels on Instagram.
Yeah.
So if you've seen the one from week 1, it is difficult, and I struggled with it. And this was the one thing where I knew it would be difficult, because you can't just like wake up at 5 a.m. randomly when this is not like hasn't been part of your routine. And so I really struggled with that. And I struggled with it, I think, throughout, but it got better. So I think the key really is to change your routine. Because I think I think the way I started this was really good, because I started it on a day where I had to wake up at 5 a.m. anyway, because I was traveling. And so I was forced, like I had to catch a train. I had to wake up at 5 a.m. Like that was...
So you created an external condition that would make you, go into it.
It was
right
there.
away.
It was already there. So I just saw it as an opportunity, right? And I think this is good because, you have an external force, let's say,
Yeah.
like something forces you to wake up. So you just have to do it. And maybe, so this was a good starting point. But then what I've noticed is that I went about my day just normally, which means I would eat at like 7 or 8 p.m., which is, dinner, which is what I usually do, but that just doesn't fly anymore. It's like if you wake up 2 hours earlier than usual, then you need to stop working 2 hours earlier than usual. Then you need to eat earlier 2 hours than usual. You have to go to bed 2 hours than usual, because otherwise you will not have this time to wind down, after dinner and before you actually go to sleep. I've really noticed the importance of that, like 2-3 hours maybe that you have until you actually sleep to wind down. Because otherwise, like, adrenaline is just going crazy and you will stay awake and then you will have a massive, like, crash. Like, I had that the first weekend after I started. I was...
So interesting.
I was, like, I would be asleep by 8 and wake up at, like, I don't know. Like, I was sleeping for more than 8 hours for sure. And I think this
It's
is the
kind
one
of like,
thing.
the discussion that we had with our expert researcher in the other episode on, basically
on the energy,
crashing.
right?
Yeah. Whenever you kind of overdo it and you don't adjust, and then you have to wake up in the morning, but it's just, not really possible because you did all of those things the previous day that didn't help you go to bed at an hour that would allow you to get 8 hours.
Definitely. And what I'm also thinking is I went, let's say, cold turkey from 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m. to like 5 a.m. Maybe it helps to first go from 7 a.m. to 6 a.m. Do this for a few weeks, and then go from 6 a.m. to 5 a.m. and see how that is working for you, because
So do it
2
gradually.
hours is a massive difference. That's what I've noticed. It is a big jump.
Okay, so you started this. It started working for you. What helped you stick to it? Because I can imagine I would have the motivation and the drive to do it maybe like, okay, for 1 week. And then I'd be like, nah, I just want to sleep. So what helped you actually stick to this routine?
This is going to sound funny, but actually it's very much in line with what we know from research. What really helps you to stick to your intentions, which is a public commitment. And I think also Oliver, in one of the last interviews, he mentioned that making a public commitment. And I remember reading about this in so many papers, and I'm like, how do you do this? And so I took this as an opportunity also, because I was documenting it, right? We made a public commitment to you guys that we will be testing these and we will take it seriously and see how it works. And this is sometimes because, there were days where I didn't want to get up. And to be honest, there were also days, especially in the first week, where I slept longer than 5 a.m. Because, and this is also another thing, I think it is always important, like sleep is one of the most important things. So don't do this and sacrifice your sleep, right? Get your 8 hours of sleep. But it did help me. And I was like, do I just like snooze for another hour or so? And I was like, no, like you committed to trying this and you really want to know whether this works, because I truly do think that it might be something that would work for me. And so, kind of the commitment on the one hand, on the other hand, also like the commitment to myself of like, let's give this a shot. Let's try, because maybe this will be the answer to the dilemmas I had before. So these two
Yeah.
things.
Okay, seems like it was working well, and you stuck to the routine.
Mostly. I know like some nights where I wasn't asleep by a certain time. Like if I knew I would get less than 6 or 7 hours of sleep, I did not put my alarm at 5 a.m. because I knew that wouldn't be healthy.
So then whenever the risk would be that you would sacrifice a good night's sleep, then you would be like more lenient.
Yeah, I would
and more self-compassionate.
Yeah, and I think this is also important, I think, with everything where it's like being, kind to yourself as well, because this is a big switch. Like whatever switch and whatever change you make, it is a change. It won't go perfectly. It just won't. And I did lean into uncomfortableness in the sense of if I knew it would be like a 6.5, 7 hours sleep only, which for me is little, I would still do it. I would still, push myself to still wake up at 5 a.m. But if I saw it was 6 or less, I wouldn't do it because I knew that there is no point in that. Like, for what, I'm just going to crash. The day's going to be horrible.
What about the weekends? Like, for instance, if you stayed up a bit late, maybe because you had social commitments, or maybe you went out with friends or family, what happened then? Like, did you also get more lenient with yourself in those situations as well, or did you keep like waking up at 5 a.m. on a Sunday?
You know what? That was so funny because like the first week when I started this, I was talking to some colleagues about it and, shared with them the experiment of the 5 a.m. club. And their first question was, but like, this is going to be so difficult. What are you going to do on the weekend now? Because that was actually on a Friday when I talked to them. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And you know what? It was interesting. I tried to still keep the 5 a.m., but I've noticed that just doesn't make any sense for me personally. But at the same time, I've noticed that even though I wouldn't put the alarm for like 5 a.m., I would still be awake by 6, regardless of what time I went to bed.
It basically changed your entire...
My body got used to it. And it got used to it
circadian rhythm.
Yeah. By the second week already, I could tell that my circadian rhythm was, maybe not 5 a.m., but it was like at a 6 a.m. level.
In a week. Wow, that is very fast, actually. Like if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because we tend to, think about, but like it's so difficult to change your circadian rhythm because, it's so set. But if it only takes like a week sometimes.
For me, it went really fast. I don't know if this has to do with that in general. I tend to wake up earlier. So it's not, I don't know when last I have slept until like 10 a.m. Like I used to do that, I don't know, when I was a teenager or something, right? Or like in my early 20s. But I haven't been able to do this anyway. So it's like between 7 or 8. This is how it was before anyway. So I don't know if this helped me to shift this earlier. But yeah, within a week, it was 1 hour earlier.
Okay, let's talk about the evenings then. Because I feel like they're like, okay, the mornings is one thing, you wake up early and you have all of this time for yourself. But you need to prep for that from the evenings, right? So how did that go for you?
The first week, it was a mess. And I think, honestly, this is probably the most crucial thing to change. So I think the waking up is the one thing, but that's just setting the alarm at a specific time. The real behavioral change is the evening routine. And so this took a while to really figure it out and then also stick to it. And so what I tried, I think starting the second week, and this is then also what I, tried to implement more and more and more strictly throughout the last 2 weeks, which was to finish work between 3 and 4, depending on when I started, because, I would start working earlier as well. So it's not like I wasn't cutting hours, I was adding hours the first week, right?
So you started working actually earlier, not at 9?
No.
Like not the usual 9 a.m.?
Most of the days I would start at like 7. Which is 2 hours earlier than usual.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that work never ends.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a couple more hours until 5, because this is, or 6, because I feel like 5 and 6 are these times that are so deeply ingrained in us. And it almost sometimes feels like, the days where I did leave the office at like 3 or 4, I was like, is this okay? I knew it was okay. But it's like
it's in the norm.
Like in the back of your mind, it's like this norm, this little voice of like, you're leaving early.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it has to do with the fact that, it wouldn't be the first time I would have heard, comments along these lines. But then to really have this, drawing this boundary and being like 3 and 4 p.m., I'm going, this is it. And my workday has completed and we're done and I'm going home. And so I think this for me was the most important boundary and kind of like routine to change and get used to. Because when you do that, then you have free time. You can go make dinner. You can like wind down, relax. So this was the evening routine that, I've been setting up.
That makes so much sense. I'm actually thinking like if I were to do it, I would probably still start at 9, like still start my work at 9, but use the hours in the morning to do the other stuff that I would probably do, like let's say in the evenings, for instance,
right,
like train and manage all of the household stuff, and then I would work maybe until. So it's super interesting that you can still be very flexible with the 5 a.m. club. Like you can choose to start your workday super early and end a bit earlier, also, and then have the afternoon for yourself. And I can imagine, just the satisfaction you get when you leave work early because you have done your hours and everybody else is still working and you're like, and I'm done. I'm done for today.
You know what it is? One thing that always like annoyed me so much was that everything is open between like 9 and 6. Or like 10 and 6 or something, including cafes, including shops. Okay, restaurants are open longer. But everything you need to do, every like errand you need to run is during your work time.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so like I understand why it is this way, right? But to me, it just seems so inefficient for me personally, because I'm like, I can work in the morning when everyone's sleeping. Who cares? Because the work I do, it doesn't require a lot of, working together or be in meetings together. So it doesn't matter when I work. It matters that I do the work. Yeah. So why not do that when everyone else is sleeping, if I'm awake anyway, and just use the time to then enjoy myself while things are still open,
That is so efficient, actually.
Yeah.
That is super efficient.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a bit about the unexpected. Because I'm curious, what was unexpected about the 5 a.m. club? Both good and bad. So like, what unexpected benefits or challenges did you encounter that you were like, oh, I also need to deal with that, given the 5 a.m. club?
Yeah, I think it may sound very naive, but I think I really underestimated how much of a plan you need to have beforehand and like the importance of the evening before. Like I knew it. I was like, yeah, it's important that I have to sleep earlier. But that was it. Yeah. Which is, if we're going into SMART goals, it's not a very smart goal to set to be like, go to sleep earlier. Right? It literally starts from when do you stop working, when you have dinner and stuff like that. So I think I underestimated that. And I think, so this was a surprise. A second surprise, or again, not complete surprise, but like, again, I underestimated that. You need a lot of like independence and flexibility to be doing this, because it
from
is
your workplace or just in your life in general?
I think in general, because I think that there are certain commitments that you may have, and just understanding that this is a routine that a lot of people don't have. So a lot of things such as meeting up with friends, or, living with your partner, or I can imagine, when you have kids, that there's just certain obligations and certain responsibilities and certain things that you need to do that are scheduled in a way that go against what you would need to be able to wake up at 5 a.m. And be rested because you did have your 8 hours of sleep. And I think this is a big make or break. So if you have a partner who has a similar routine to you, and also wake up early, goes to sleep early, this makes it easier. If you can push meetings and everything, or other types of obligations towards the like earlier in the day, and you don't need to be available past, let's say, 4 p.m., 5 p.m., this makes it easier. But yeah, what are you going to do if you have meetings or some other type of obligations at like 6 p.m., 7 p.m.? Try to go be asleep by 9. Like, that is difficult.
Yeah.
And I think this
or
is
like very tight deadlines probably that kind of come up when you expect the least.
Yeah, or when you rely on being available for colleagues until a certain time. Of course you can't shift everything like 2 hours before. So I think it is great, but it was surprising just how many challenges there would be. Not sure the waking up and stuff, sure, but like even once you have your own routine, just realizing that this is not the norm for a lot of people, and what comes with that.
Yeah, so like having to also adjust sometimes.
We live in a context.
Yeah.
We live in a context, right? And so this has an impact, and you need to adjust, or maybe the 5 a.m. club doesn't work for everyone. And this is, I think, also an important thing to say. I think it worked for me quite well, mostly. But I don't know if we're going to go into that later. But yeah, this is something to consider when if you're considering to try the 5 a.m. club. Consider what are other aspects in your life that might interfere.
So if you were to advise people on whether to start the 5 a.m. club or not, like in your opinion, and given the fact that you've tried this for a whole month, who should definitely not even give it a go?
If you can't make sure that you will realistically and reliably be able to sleep early enough so that you get your 8 hours of sleep or 7 hours of sleep, depending on what your body needs, don't do it. Because you'll be sacrificing one of the most important things that sustain your productivity, your health, your happiness. And I think this shouldn't be sacrificed.
So that's a deal breaker. Like if your sleep is sacrificed, that's a deal breaker.
Yes.
Just don't do it.
If there is no way that you can be asleep before 10, don't do it. I think the negatives are, And I can imagine that there is different reasons that, or circumstances that might make it unrealistic to sleep early enough. And whatever it is fine. But I think it's important to be honest to yourself, right? And this was for me the weekends, for example. Highly unrealistic that I actually, will get enough sleep to be waking up at 5 a.m. Maybe it's going to be 7 a.m. instead of what it was before. Maybe it's still going to be a bit earlier, but it's not going to be 5 a.m. most of weekends, and then it's like, do I want to sacrifice meeting with people? I like going to a restaurant in the evening. I like going, for a drink afterwards. And so these are the things I think to consider where it's like, I also don't know how it is when your productivity peak is in the afternoon, right? So for me, it worked because my productivity peak is in the morning. Maybe for people where they have a very strong productivity peak in the afternoon, maybe this is not the way as well. So these two things.
Let's go back to why you started this in the first place. You mentioned that you wanted to have more time in the mornings, more time for yourself. You also mentioned that you wanted to align more with the chronotype that you had. And at the end of the day, this was all about productivity and well-being.
Yeah.
So when it comes to productivity and well-being, did you notice any changes?
Yes.
And what changes were those?
Yes. It worked for me. I really do think it worked for me. Despite the struggles, especially at the start, to get into a sleeping rhythm that helps. I've really noticed that I was more productive. I got things done faster and I was more focused. Past 2 p.m., forget it. I was out, that was for the admin work. But this was not much different beforehand anyway. So I really feel like I had a longer time span where I was very productive, and I loved it. I think it also helped that I started this, in spring, where it's actually daylight. It was such an amazing feeling to just see the sun rise every morning. Like, that was amazing to me. I love that, right? It's like sunsets, sunrises. I love that. But I never or barely usually got to see the sunrise unless it was winter, because I wouldn't wake up early enough. Yeah. And that was so nice. I started doing Pilates in the mornings as well. So book the early classes. This also helped me actually to keep myself accountable, by the way. So booking a 7 a.m. class, I would wake up and I would be like, you know what? I'm really, really, really excited actually, to wake up early and go there and, see the sunrise on the way there. And there's just something amazing, at least for me. It made me feel so amazing just knowing that I went to my Pilates class, I've worked out, I've done something for myself first thing in the morning, right? Done that for an hour. Then I went and treated myself to a post-workout matcha. And then I'm driving home and it's maybe 8:30, 9 a.m. and then I'll start working. These were the days, by the way, where I did actually start working a bit later, right? But to me, this was amazing. It gave me, it made me feel good. It made me feel like I'm starting my day and I've already done something, at least 2 things for myself that bring me genuine joy. And I think I also like this. It almost seems like even though I was doing things, it wasn't like I woke up and like I wouldn't do things, right? I would also take time to like read, for example, and stuff, but it's things that bring me joy. And this was really great. And it still felt like it was a slow start because it's not like it's like super duper busy. And I think as someone, I have such a busy mind, and I'm an introvert and I do love being around people, but I do like the mornings too.
For yourself.
To be like really nice and serene and peaceful and just, I can focus on myself. And that 10 out of 10 for me personally.
So if you guys were inspired, start the 5 a.m. club.
Yeah.
I do have one more question for you.
Go for it.
And that question is, given this experience, what did you learn about yourself?
So I had to think about it for a sec because I think a lot of it I knew. I knew that I'm a morning person, but I think I just learned just how much I do enjoy that and how much it does make a difference for me. And it was nice to see that I actually managed, maybe not perfectly, but I actually managed the switch. So I don't know, maybe I'm actually more, disciplined than I thought. So
that's nice. Yeah. That is nice. I love how, experiences that we have and experiments that we make with when it comes to our well-being also teach us a lot about ourselves, about our strengths, but also show us that we can do hard things.
Yeah.
And that is such a motivator, I think, right? Like when you know that like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can really wake up at 5 a.m. for a whole month.
Yeah. And honestly, if you try that, be ready for some very interesting reactions from the people around you. We're going to be like, 5 a.m. And then, when you've done it and you look back and it's like, I've done this for a month and I've seen benefits. Yeah, it makes you feel good about yourself. Feels quite empowering, I have to say.
Are you going to take it into another month or into another year?
Yes. A year, I don't know. I will take it into another month. Let's see how summer goes. Because in summer, especially when traveling, again, I like to make the most of the mornings. But I also know this is when I'm being more social. Things just happen a lot in the evening. And I like that. So maybe I'll have to adjust a little bit there. But for now, for this month and probably the next month coming, I'm keeping it up.
Nice.
You'll be seeing stories at like 5 a.m. Central European time.
in July, you know. But it would be
In
nice.
July, maybe not actually. In July,
then
I
you
think
can take a nap
I'll be the night owl.
You know, you can do the whole like siesta thing, like what they do in Spain, for instance, when they wake up like super early, they do their stuff. When it's not too hot, then they have a siesta, and then they stay up late again.
Girl,
So-
I have to say, there has not been one time in my life across childhood, teenage years, my whole 20s, not one time has a nap actually helped me. It
Okay.
helped me in the moment where I don't get naps. I don't understand it. Every time I've taken a nap was because obviously I was tired in the moment. So, you know, it was like relief in that moment because I could sleep. But then I just woke up
Yeah.
and I felt like a headless chicken, basically. Because I was like, I don't know, you're there, but you're not there. And then productivity's gone. And I was just like, I was awake, but I was just like hanging around, I don't know, watching something because I was basically still tired. So I don't know. Maybe that's the next test, actually. Power
so-
naps.
Well, I definitely look forward to seeing more of that, to seeing more of this experience. I definitely know that, like, from this interview, the 5 a.m. club would definitely not be my thing because I am an afternoon person.
Yeah.
Like my productivity peaks after lunch.
Yeah.
Like I don't even get an after lunch dip.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, lunch, let's go, you know? So,
I mean, then it would probably be so counterproductive.
but I can stay a bit later and still work. So it's so interesting. Like, well, we hope that from this episode you learned whether the 5 a.m. club fits you and your lifestyle, but also reflect on how you can actually make it happen. And I think like I've gotten great insights onto how, you know, our routines, you know, make up so much of whether waking up earlier makes sense for us.
Yeah.
And also the evenings, and also what exactly do we do? You know, do we do something for ourselves first thing in the morning? Do we take the time to, you know, have more serenity, have space for just a bit of meditation, you know, and a bit of just existence, if that makes sense. So we hope that you've gotten great insights on whether to try the 5 a.m. club and how to do it. And thanks, Eleni, for all your insights.
Always happy to. Tell us what experiment, what well-being trend you would like us to test next, by the way. We would love to know. We're super open for inspiration and suggestions.
Exactly, because like we're open to like really maximizing our well-being and productivity, but probably mostly well-being in this
and also
case.
debunk what doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Because the 5 a.m. doesn't work for everyone.
The 5 a.m. club depends on your chronotype.
Yeah.
That's
if
the
you're
conclusion.
a morning person, approved.
You guys, if you enjoyed this Friday coffee chat, you can support our Friday coffee chats by buying us a coffee. You can find the link in the episode description. And if you've enjoyed this episode, you can also send it to a friend who would like to try the 5 a.m. club but doesn't know where to start.
See you next time.
Bye.